Well, good morning, everyone. So much for our theme song. We're working on it coming in. But anyway, welcome. It's Labor Day. And so we're having fun on Labor Day, laboring with fun. And we have a special guest today. And Tina's going to introduce herself in a minute. She's been with us before, and she's a delightful, talented lady. And she's got something special for us today. And we're season 6, episode 6 today. So, Sandy, have you got a quote for us?
Yes, I do. I don't know if any of you remember Carol Burnett. She was in my childhood when I was growing up, but I loved her humor. I loved her slapstick comedy. I just, watching some of the shows, the reruns, it reminds me of why I enjoyed her. She just was a lot of fun. And her comment that we're going to share today says, when you have a dream, you've got to grab it and never let go. That's by Carol Burnett.
Awesome, awesome. Well, Tina, welcome back. And I'm going to let you briefly introduce yourself and then tell us what's up. You're doing some exciting stuff.
Thank you so much, Sue and Sandy. And I am in love with Carol Burnett too. Everything about her and her being and humor is fabulous. So thank you for that delightful kickoff and start to this conversation. So I'm Tina B, and I'm an intuitive communication coach who really helps heart-centered leaders stop performing and start resonating so that their message doesn't just land, it lingers. And I do this framework, the B method, which is really focused on lots and lots of people are disconnected from their bodies, their breath, and their voice. And I use embodiment and expression and other creative formats to really embrace their truth so that they can stand and speak in it and have that cultural impact. And so today I thought it'd be really cool to embrace and dive into this idea of intuitive listening.
Okay, intuitive listening. Well, tell us more.
Yeah, it's something that I've really tapped into as of late because I've found the more that I've been working with clients, either at an individual level or in team building workshops or just out and about in a functional soul, having a human experience and conversing with other people, we are more distracted and disconnected than ever before. And because of that, what ends up happening is we don't co-create messages, we don't see, we don't hear, and we don't comprehend what the other is saying. We're missing what's not being said, and we're just missing messages. And because of the missing, and because our power is in our bodies and in our breath, I mean, we're holding our breath more than ever before. I believe intuitive listening is the tapping in and getting inward into our bodies, the heart-brain coherence that Joe Dispenza talks about, as well as the connection with our breath and being, so that when we do express, there's a coherence. It's a coherence from thought and deep belief system into what we say and how we say it. And so to me, intuitive listening is this beautiful certainty that there's calmness in the nervous system so that we can have coherent thought, mind, body, spirit connection so that we can use our gifts and contribute in ways that are powerful and meaningful.
Okay. So the first thing that comes to my mind is when you are intuitively listening, when does that connection happen so that the person I'm listening to feels it too, and we can connect? Because they're distracted too. Is there a way to do it, or you just start doing it and trust that they kind of jump in?
It's a great question because obviously we can't control how other people think, what they say, what they do, how they behave and be. The only really, and even the environment, right? Whatever environment you're in, if there's distractions and background noise, whether virtually or in person, you can't control what's on the other end. And so what you can control is what intuitive Abraham Hicks talks about, which is segment intention, is go into every circumstance and take a beat and a breath and ask yourself, what is my intention for this given communication? And I found, like, whether it's before a virtual call with a client, walking into a networking situation before a keynote speech, whatever the case may be, it's having that moment of really, am I in my body right now? Where am I? Because even if your body is in a space, you could really be in the past of worry, of distraction, of stress, of all of that, or sad based on conversation exchanges you've had personally with friends, family, etc. Or you could be anxious with that anticipatory reaction of what's to come, like creating those worried movie stories that have yet to come. It's the story we tell ourselves. So to answer your question, Sue, the first is that it's really on you, your responsibility to get fully calmed, grounded in your being, so that when you show up, and it's also advocating for, if you notice that the person is on their phone or disconnected or all over the place, you get to, either on the phone or in person, say, you know, I'm sensing this may not be a really good time right now to have a conversation. So let me know when it works for you, because what you're doing is you are standing in your power and protecting your peace. Because at the end of the day, if they're not with you and connected, they're going to have that message go right over their heads.
Right. That's good. It's almost, I know a word that we've been using recently is presence. So if I am clear and I come into the conversation as clear as I can be without any anxiety or other emotions dangling, then I can be present, and then I will be able to check with that person and understand if this is a good time or not. And that,
Yeah, it's absolutely meeting them where they are. And it's also like, for example, when I was out and about with someone, and clearly I would be in the midst of a story, and then they would get distracted and say, "Oh, look at this," or "See this." You get to decide, are you to go back to that moment that you left at,
mhm,
or do you just, okay, clearly they're not engaged. Clearly I'm either boring them or they're ready to move on or it's too much or something. And I let them interrupt, because people interrupt me a lot. I've been guilty of interruptions. We all are, because at the end of the day, it's either boredom that motivates the interruption. It's ego that really taps into interruption. I have something more important to say. I don't want to forget it. I better say it. Whatever the case may be, turn taking happens. And if you come from a space of real love, you let the person who's talking finish that thought, then the transition happens. I found, like, even a dear friend of mine who's one of the best listeners I know said, I love your energy and your enthusiasm sometimes steps on what I'm saying. And that was wonderful, loving feedback, because even though I was enthusiastic, I was still interrupting that person, which said to them that my idea was more important. So it's really tapping into that you can miss something when you see something, hear something, that you get in that distraction mode that can really harm and hurt the relationship and the conversation.
yeah, I like that. It's the connection that's important, not just my intuition that's kind of, being the default, so to speak. I know with kids, now this is probably old school stuff, but it helped. We did some what we called mirroring, so if I was talking to a kid, didn't want to share his story, I would try to mirror what he was doing. And then, and that helped a little bit. And then also, just sort of getting into their energy, not losing yours, but getting into theirs. So it's not so true with adults one-on-one. And I don't think with teams either, but I really like the word intuitive coaching.
Yeah, thank you. Well, and I think you bring up presence, right? It's meeting the other where they are. And in communication research, it's called postural echo. So
Okay.
that idea of mirroring, there's a lot that we can unpack there. First of all, if someone comes at you, which I just came from a couple weeks ago, I went to the National Speakers Association conference, and I had some very powerfully rich conversations with people from all over who are speakers nationally, internationally. And some of those were, every conversation I feel we have are mirroring to us something. It can be a projection of what we need to learn about ourselves. And so I feel like whether we are speaking with, in my case, a teenage son or a dear friend or a colleague or a current or potential client, young adult, mature adult, whatever the age and experience is, if you meet them where they are and you really tune in, I feel that we really can channel in and feel energetically where the conversation, like where it is, if it's to happen, how it's to be, and you got to release control, release expectations, because I think at the end of the day, like the best communication I ever had, whether it's in a podcast or organically in conversation, is when there's no major expectations and control. That yes, you have an intention and say, I want to connect with this person, but at the key piece, it's meeting the other where they are. And that's a trust level. That's building that loving trust in the conversation.
Laying down my agenda and just letting it happen. Sandy, have you had some experiences where you've intuitively listened and it's been productive? Because you've had a lot of good.
The first thought when you were talking, Tina, was the fact that it seems like that would be a big part of emotional intelligence, is to really have intuitive coaching. There's times when it seems to happen and other times when it doesn't seem to happen. But I think one of the things that I've shared with my kids in regard to relationships that they have wanted more and they didn't get more is setting your expectations for what that capacity of that person is, because otherwise you're always disappointed, and therefore you can't go forward because there's a hole in your heart that can't be mended. Where if you go in and say, this is all this person can give me, and it's going to have to be enough. And again, I think that's intuitive. I think that is being able to, again, be really present in knowing what is real and going from there. Because we can end up missing the good things that can happen when we don't kind of set that stage for ourselves and build on what is capable of happening with that person that you're connecting with.
I love that you highlighted emotional intelligence. And I think that that's a really important piece here, is being aware of what your feelings are. Where are you at? Are you in a state of being and mind and space to actually engage in conversation, taking care of yourself, and seeing if the other is there? It's sort of also, I would say, in addition to emotional intelligence, it's conversational intelligence. Yeah. Are you trying to sell, tell, and yell your ideas? Because I think sometimes our agendas can be extraordinarily important, and it's very passionate to us, and passion can sometimes come off as not centered confidence, but more egotistical way of being. The super ego can take over. And if I come into a conversation, we all do, with our biases based on our experiences, how we grew up. And what I have found is when I've done the inner work of healing my inner child, the inner work of healing past wounds and traumas, that has helped tremendously with being a better listener, with being much more present, with being much more aware, and not taking things so personally. Because I think the moment we do that, feedback is just the other person's experience of you. And they are allowed that. And we are allowed to feel what we feel. The other is allowed to feel what they feel and how they show up and how they express. And that's, I think, been the biggest piece that I've really explored is, I think we talked about this maybe in a past conversation, is it's that yes and attitude of acceptance of the context and the situation for what it is, acceptance of the other, how they show up and how they be, and the acceptance of self, and really standing in our power. because I have found through all of this 3-long-year healing journey, it's really been about me claiming my power and claiming me, that I am worthy and enough and deserve to be the big personality that I am worthy to have a voice, and the way I show up in the world as the creative theatrical artist that I am. Hence why I'm really leaning into Tina B, as in call me Tina B, B-E. It's not just my brand. It's so much more than that. It's a state of being. It's how I lead and how I speak and who I am.
I really like the fact that when you talk about healing yourself and healing your traumas, it's interesting because what that does is it causes you to be more vulnerable. And you would think that would make you draw back, but it actually gives you permission to be yourself and not go out there wounded. You know what I mean? And then there's a real magnetic quality to that for others too. So,
Well, one of the things that pops in mind too is that there's stages of development, no matter whether you're a little bitty kid or whether you're grown tall and that kind of thing. There's still development in human beings that kind of go through a maturation point where you learn as you grow and have maturity. Because some of the things that we were talking about when I was in my 40s, when I was younger, I wasn't there developmentally yet to be able to step back away and not take things as personal as now. You have that choice. We can either listen effectively with each other and really care and build a relationship, or I can let you make your choice. Like you said, they may not be engaging with you because that just isn't what they want to do. And I don't take it as personally as I would have years ago, developmentally, because right now I feel more comfortable in my skin than I have earlier in my lifetime. Does that make sense?
Oh, it absolutely does. I think the older you get, the more like yourself you become, and you get a lot more grounded and firm with your core values. Like, I know what my 2 core values are integrity, living, speaking, being in it, so people can count on me, trust me. I trust myself, my own intuition, and how I show up in the world. And then also creativity, that I see value in how I show up in my business and beyond. That play is an important part of all the things. And that's where my business has really evolved into, as I came from an academic background. And though I have those skills and teach those skills, I'm doing so much more from the being that I am, which is from play and spirituality. That this idea of coming into your own and speaking up and out in a clear, confident way doesn't have to be painful. It can be powerfully fun.
Sure. And that actually has a greater impact. It reaches people more viscerally than just words.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. So tell us what you're up to. You've got some new stuff coming ahead, and I'd love to hear what kind of set you on this course.
Yeah, well, I would say, so to Sandy's point, every year we get a little bit wiser. I'm hitting a big birthday this year, the day after Thanksgiving. I'm turning 50.
Ooh, congratulations.
Ooh, yeah. Half of a century, and it's kind of a wild experience, because I don't feel like I acted, feel it, which is whatever 50 is, right?
Right.
At the same time, because of that, I thought, well, okay, I'm in act 3 of my life, and in year 5 of my business, doing it full time, not part time. And so what does this look like, sound like, feel like, that is much more in alignment with myself and how I be? And so a gift I'm doing for myself to shatter perfectionism, get a lot more visible, and build and boost my confidence, is putting 50 speaking engagements by January 1st. And that includes virtual podcast panels, networking, presentations, keynotes, workshops, and beyond, and even freestyle improv and sports, whatever, right? And performances at my theater that I do improv, all of that to just get my voice out there, to build on that muscle. So that's a big thing that I'm doing, that is shaking it up a little bit and discovering the play that it takes. And just because I know that with my upcoming signature talk that I'm recrafting and tweaking and writing, it's really focusing in on embedding freestyle improv to show these heart-centered men and soul-led women leaders that, show up and stand firmly on the firm ground. And, whether that's high heels or sneakers, we have different fashion choices, same with our style of leadership and communication. The other thing that I'm doing, so part of that is offering a free workshop later this month, September 23rd at 11:30 Central Time. So that'd be 9:30 Pacific Time. And it is focused in on specifically entitled Speak So They Feel You, The Art of Intuitive Listening and Embodied Expression. So it's a masterclass on the B method and a speaking framework to lead with presence, not performance, to speak from your soul and connect more deeply, and to learn some embodied tools to really ground, express, and influence with authenticity and authority. And so I'm excited about a power lunch opportunity there, and just getting out there more, opening up the possibility of group coaching again. I had done that in the first couple years of my work and then kind of backed off. So I'm opening a group coaching program for men and then one for women to be a safe container to do 3 months of work. It's like a masterclass deep dive of come with a speaking vision to lead with more impact. And then also I still have my 6 month and 1 year diamond level individual series as well, to be a magnetic power communicator, to be fully expressed.
Yeah, you're really teaching people how to be themselves.
That's right. And isn't it funny, like Free to Be You and Me? I remember,
Marlo Thomas.
yes, isn't that such a great song? I got that CD and book as a gift years and years ago when I had my kiddo. Yeah. And what a powerful message. And I feel like Rogers' Neighborhood was also, I like you just the way you are. What a simplistic message, but a powerful one, that here's this adult that's looking out into the camera, telling little people that, taking you to imagination, like an imagination, make-believe land. And so you're encouraged to imagine, to dream, to be creative. Like he was alone all the time. His autobiography is very interesting. He, along with, Jim Henson, all these creatives, put things out into the world, took creative risks to express themselves fully, making huge waves in the world. And that's exactly right, Sue. It's how have we lost ourselves? And I think part of it is the culture. We're expected to, we want to fit in. It's human nature to connect. Absolutely. Even if you're introverted, there's still a part and a piece of it's human nature to have some form of sense of belonging and connection. And because of that, in the midst, I noticed as a little girl, to fit in, whether in my peer group at church or school or what have you, I became shushed, be the pretty girl, be the good girl, all this and that, even if I wanted to be to my own drum and do theater. When in Southwest Iowa, it was much more common to do speech, which I enjoyed. And sports were even more important at that time in rural schools. And so it's figuring out what are those core values? How do you stand firm in that? And having the accountability and the support. And that's what I offer as your intuitive guide.
Yeah.
Well, I think as a human, we are created. I believe we're created, and I believe we're created with spirituality in our life, that we have to be able to be in tune with those surroundings around us. And I think the Western culture has really beat that up. I think that, you look at some of the other areas of the world and they seem to have a better handle on that portion. And I'm glad that you're bringing forward the fact that we are many facets of a human being. And that is part of it, to be able to really tap into who we are and what we were created to be.
Yeah. And creativity doesn't necessarily look like the arts, so to speak. I mean, some of us dabble in that, but you're creative no matter what. But you need courage. to move forward into what you are. And that's the thing that people get scared, or they have trauma that's kind of mashed them down. And so courage is a big part of it. And just, stick your toe in the water and see how the ripples go, and then follow those ripples,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's like Mel Robbins in her podcast. She says, that courage or being confident is just the willingness to try.
Yeah.
And I think we've been taught so much. I know me that is all about achievement, more, do this, earn that A, then do this, then get that one rating at the piano festival or the speech festival, win the game for volleyball, whatever it was. And then it progressed. Yeah. And I did that to myself in college. I did that to myself in business, and then doing my own business. And I kept moving the goalposts more. Right. And I think you are absolutely spot on in that when we think about this idea of creation, we are all creators. Whether you're a mechanic, whether you're a financial planner, you have to think, get creative about being creative with what you do with your money, investments and budgeting and et cetera, and help and teach people that way. If you're a business owner, or startup entrepreneur into technology, all of it, not necessarily just the visual arts and the performing arts, it's all of it. And so I love that you brought that up, Sue, because you're right. And I've heard so many people own the phrase, I'm not creative, which is just absolutely false.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And people that work with their hands, I know I taught at a technical college for a while, and my most creative students were my welders. And, but there's a, in our hands, when we touch things and we create this way, it's very, very powerful. And it isn't the same as some book learning, because these guys and gals never forget. Once they learn how to do stuff, it's in them. They don't need the instructions oftentimes. They're actually smarter than some of the book learners.
And it's a different type of smarts, right? It goes back to what Kiersey would talk about at the core. What's your core value? Because that all human beings have a goal of how they use words and tools to achieve that goal. And our core values impact that. Yeah. And so whether you're a hands-on type of person, that's a different type of form of intelligence than someone writing a book. Sure. or someone who's a teacher, or someone who is into healthcare, whatever that may be. I think of my father-in-law, who loves working on the lathe, and he'll take a piece of wood and transform it. And he'll look at a visual and then just create. And it's amazing the kinds of things, from little candle holders to pens to wine stoppers and beyond. And years ago, he created a labyrinth on the farm with lots of plants and things. And I mean, his mind works that way. He's very architecturally savvy. Now, could I do that? It would take me a long time to design it. I mean, and to actually implement it with a mower. I mean, he just naturally, there's this inner gift. And when we figure out, I think at the core, what our inner gifts are, and, find the way to express it, whether it's through speaking, writing, singing, dancing, building, whatever, teaching, then the magic happens. And it's in that.
And that's really what education should be like for little kids. We should be exploring who they are. I mean, do you see pictures? Do you see words? Do you see concepts? Do you work with your hands? And it's just too bad we haven't been that way, but I'm trusting that it's going to move that way.
I think that one thing that there is becoming a shift is that we are figuring out more than ever before is that the way we do business is different than what was done in the classroom, that there was this huge disconnect. And I am seeing more and more, we've got tech centers like in Southwest Iowa and in other parts of the country, because what we're recognizing is businesses need to communicate, connect with schools to say, where are we evolving with technology? Where are we evolving in the healthcare field and other departments fields in cities and beyond? Because if we're sending young people out into the world and And I mean, I don't know about you, but I have never used Algebra 2 in my entire life. Now, math is important, consumer math and keeping a budget and that kind of financial literacy. It would have been super helpful to have an investment class that you talk about financially your budget and then thinking about retirement and planning for it and doing it at age 15 and far in advance, and even learning and understanding loans going into college and all of that versus grants, that terminology. I think that you're right. It's tapping into, there are visual learners, audible learners, there's kinesthetic learners, people who need to write, reflect, etc., and being able to have that variety.
Right.
Absolutely. Right. Well, I know the sad part when I was working at the technical college was, and I taught communication and interviewing and stuff like that. But these people really were so wounded from K-12 education. They thought they were stupid because they didn't succeed in the K-12, And so part of my job was to illuminate them that they were brighter than some of their, some of the people they grew up with. And it was wonderful to have them explore that, but it needs to happen when they're little.
Yeah, it's amazing the power of words, what one phrase a teacher could say and how it stays in that child as a belief. I got a paper back in elementary school that said, Tina, I appreciate your creativity, but you need to color inside the lines. And I thought, let's explore this. And when I was out and about years ago in one of my jobs in AmeriCorps, was teaching kiddos where their food came from. I walked into an elementary classroom and they had 2 trees, and the teacher had put right way to color a tree, wrong way. And the wrong way looked like a Dr. Seuss tree. And I thought, well, what Dr. Seuss, who's this renowned creator and creative, was told and taught differently, that would have impacted so many kiddos who loved rhyme, weird words, creativity, all of it.
Yeah.
Imagination.
Yeah, and a lot of time the creatives that aren't the inside the line people build a lot of resilience. Because you have to break away from that and believe it. But it takes a lot of work, to do that.
I'm a heart-centered rebel.
Right.
Yeah. Amen. I know the feeling. Okay, so you are doing how many? 50?
Yeah, 50 speaking engagements by January 1st, and I kicked it off mid-August.
Okay.
And I'm at 13 or so, which isn't terrible. It's a good kickoff. And so, I mean, of course, this counts.
Yeah,
that's right.
That Sue, that you invited me back. So thank you.
Well, and you know more about that workshop you're giving, because I'll try to advertise it for you.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah. So it is Tuesday, September 23rd.
I'll have you say that, and
I'll put it in the notes that it speaks so they feel you. It's the art of intuitive listening and embodied expression. It's a Tuesday, the 23rd of this month, from 11:30 to 12:30 Central Time, or in your case, from 9:30 to 10:30 Pacific.
Yeah, that's really wonderful. I love the synchronicity of us artists. Here we are. I'm reading a book called Storyful. It's from Matt. What's his name? Anyway, he's a storyteller, an improv guy, and a novel writer. And he talks about when you're crafting a story, you can't tell someone else's story. Even if you're a part of their story, you have to tell it from your point of view and exactly what you said, because it won't be energized unless it's your story.
Right. It's all about point of view, right? Because obviously, that's a lot of the coaching I do is, you can embed in a presentation, like Jesse Owen had a really cool, he was known as a renowned Olympic runner. And if you're trying to illustrate through an analogy of the work that he did, that could be a great example, right? It's not your story. It's one that is a famous story, because sports make for great analogies when we're talking about overcoming failure or success. And I love your point, Sue, where you're talking about this idea when it comes to true on the 5 beats of story, where there's a setup, an inciting incident, there's the whole factor of conflict, that then what's that transformation at the end. And it's a lot more powerful from your point of view. Even if, like in the world of business, having someone tell their story of working with you, testimonials are very, very powerful. That's fantastic. Or it's thinking about making the audience the hero of the story. And how do you do that? Like being in that dance together.
And the thing that really hits me is when I tell my story, there's emotion connected to it. And that's that part that my heart touches your heart, and that doesn't happen in someone else's story, because that little bit of pain or that little bit of, awareness that you got doesn't come across if it's someone else's story.
Right, because, well, and they actually showed Paul Zak, who did research on people's brains, that our brains actually change when we as audience members listen to story. It's literally the oxytocin, that helping hormone, gets a boost when we ride the waves of story. And so that's why it's such a powerful persuasive tool for nonprofits. And it is a transportation of the head to people's hearts, that the words land. And hence why it's so crucial to embed sensory details, and particularly your emotions, like how this made you feel. And that's that vulnerability factor, where that is your power tool. If you're willing to go there, people feel it with you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. So I want to, and I don't know, I wrote one article on leadership and improv. And I don't know if you got it or not, but
yes, you got it anyway.
And I've split it into, I've got 4 or 5 little pieces that are coming. I'm going to go into, so that was improv. I'm going to go into dance. I'm going to go into music. I'm even thinking of like healthcare and teaching. They're really, those are jobs that call for being an improvisationist. Because you're there, you have to be present, land on your feet, and then do your work, and come back. So, but please give me feedback when you get those, because I want to continue. I think it might have to be a longer article or even a little short book, but it's exciting to me because I'm a old drama major.
Oh, there you go. Well, and you're right. Being an improviser, I think any career field, whatever you decide, has that element of, we just don't know what the other is going to throw our way and say and do. And so it's really, I'm taking a top of your intelligence class. It's actually meeting tonight. And what I love about this class is we're trying to figure out, what does that mean as an improviser to be at the top of your intelligence? Well, it's hitting on emotional intelligence. It's hitting on cognitive intelligence, on relational intelligence. And so it's like these stair steps. And the first one is feeling. We were very intentional with starting with emotions and feelings even before the thinking piece, because that's where the body comes into play. Like when someone says or does something, how does that make you feel? And it was wild with one of our scenes last week where we were to stand parallel with our partner, and the activity was, we just had to make a declaration. So my partner, I said, "You have cut off jeans." And she had to repeat back, "Yes, I have cut off jeans." And then I had to start to evolve into a feeling about them. And so I decided to go against my norm and be judgy about it. "Oh, you have cut off jeans." And so what that did is she got to channel into, well, how did that feel for her to be judged for something she's wearing? She took on a daughter role immediately, and I took on a mother role. And we had a very powerful scene where I'm telling her that she needs to wear non-cut off jeans. It's distracting. She has lovely legs and she's getting all uncomfortable. I want to do what I want to do, Mom. And then I go into, well, I've always been told not to wear cut off jeans, and it became about me. And so we had this really beautiful humor, moment of serious and resolution. And so I say all of that in thinking, and in terms of the article, you might explore this idea of top of intelligence, because as improvisers, on stage, the most rich scenes, the improvisers not only show up at top of intelligence with piercing the audience, like piercing the listening. It's, you get a suggestion, you go there, you move from A to C, you know, and that means you might skip what the original first reaction is, and you jump to the next level and the next beat of that, and you get into rich detail, and then you come back to it by the end because you've listened. Or if there's no such thing as mistakes or failures in improv, as Tina Fey says, there's only opportunities. So anything becomes real.
Sure.
And it's how do you stay grounded in your scenes and make it the most real thing.
Right. And you know what that jumps my mind to is, especially in music improv, you have to be a master at your instrument or your voice in order to do improv well, because you can't be thinking about where your fingers are or what the words, you know. And so when you align that to leadership, you have to be a master at the skills of leadership. And then you add that creativity in improv, and then it works together, because then it reaches the heart of whoever you're talking to or working with. I like that. Yeah. Oh, well, I am so excited about what you're doing. And I hope that you're going to take your own intuitive advice and not be judgy about how many presentations you have. That's gonna flow out of your heart. You know, you're 50 at 50, and you're just a little baby.
I do feel that way. It's like, woo, into my becoming. And you're right. Thank you for that reminder of the non-judgment, because we're very good at beating ourselves up internally. Because, you know, last Thursday night, I read a poem I composed at my very first poetry slam. And what I didn't know were two things. One, that they rank you. That's hard. And then two, they were playing instrumental music in the background to go with the mood. And when I was sharing emotion, it got louder and louder and became really hard for me to hear myself. And I even had like little earbuds in. And so I thought to myself, this was such a great opportunity and experience. I was not the first, nor the second, I was the third speaker. And I'm a highly sensitive person, an HSP. So I can tell when 1 degree is turned down in temperature. Sound and really loud sound is very hard for me, more than normal people, or, you know, for most people. And so I could have stood up and said, hey, love your music. Do you mind bringing it down a notch or two? Just for me to, you know, kind of thing. And so it's getting into that clarity of calling things out, standing and advocating for yourself, and not going, oh, this one ranking, because the 4 out of the 5 rankings are really good and one was a little lower. Where do we go with our amygdala? We go to the one that was not as high as we wanted, you know. And it's celebrating, though, that I put myself out there and did something very bold and brave.
That's true. Yeah, courage it's all about. I know the last 10 years or so in my coaching, I've been working on becoming more intuitive. And that is often when somebody's talking and something pops into my head, rather than holding back and worrying, you know, where should this go? I just tell them, you know, and they can accept it, or they can, no, that's not it. And that took bravery to do, because I didn't want people shutting down, but it pierces, you know, that intuitive hit usually pierces to the person that you're working with.
For sure.
Okay. So what is one thing that you're taking away from our conversation today?
There was a lot of nuggets. I would say we hit on so many things, and I think ultimately presence is a big part of everything. If we are fully present, you know, I feel like both Sandy and you, Sue, have been with me this whole time. Sandy didn't get to speak as much, but I did feel like the nuggets she shared were poignant, and that she was with me. Right. That listening is so important. And that how powerful it is, even if you don't get to speak very much, the power of her presence I could feel, that I could sense she just was with me. And that is a gift. Because, in terms of, it's hard to share the stage when there's 3 people. And sometimes the being okay with stepping back and being in an allowance of organically, like, how is this going to flow and go, and just being.
Mhm.
And that we don't have to do a lot of talking and saying and putting it out there. It's being present with the person.
Right. Right.
And there's power in that.
There is. Sandy, how about you?
Just a reminder that there's so many faces of creativity. I think we oftentimes lose sight of that, and we think that it's just it's an art form of, can you draw, can you do make a, can you do music, can you write a musical story or song or whatever. And what you reminded us when we were talking is that we all have that creativity in us. It just looks different with every person. But going back to finding out who you are, Tina, we just have to stop and give ourselves a chance to be able to explore that for ourselves and be able to know that, and then build from there so that we can be confident in who we are as a person and the creativity that we bring to the environment around us.
Mm-hmm.
I love your 2 core values, and I resonate with both of them. But when you say integrity, what picture comes to my mind was a mentor of mine, and people would have me, explain why you like your mentor, because she was kind of a scary woman. I was, trying to learn how to be a principal, and she was a master at what she did, and she scared the daylights out of me. But when I would describe her, I would say, so she is like gold, like a gold piece, and she is the same gold. It's integrous on the outside, and down here it's the same. It's integrity. So it's kind of fidelity and pureness, and that's one of my favorite words. It's a really good word. Okay, so thank you so much. Yep. We will keep you in the loop for your master class. I'm excited about that, and then we'll have you on again for an update on.
Well, there we go. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, ladies, and absolutely would love people to connect with me. I have my book, Discovering Our Magnetic Speaker Within.
That's right.
And it's got tips and tools and means to apply what it takes to have a mindset, message, mechanics to be magnetic. And then TinaBakehouse.com is a great way to get in touch with me. Tina, Tina, Bakehouse.com. And soon it's going to be changed to TinaBe.com. So we continued.
Yeah, I'll put that thing on our bottom notes too. And don't you have another book coming out?
I had one that I did with a group of women that actually I went to LA in February. It was a 262 project, women leaders. So I was in a collective for that to tell my business story and my story.
Okay, I knew you were working on something. So
yeah.
Good. Okay, so we'll see you on the other side.
Sounds great.